So now let's move ahead. Okay, we will try and discuss some of questions related to communication so we have a better understanding of it. Okay, now, for example, what do you think can communication do in development? Okay, communication has its effects to the actions of people. So, whatever communication can do for development comes through what people do or don't do because they participate in a communication process. This is not to say that communication determines what people do or don't do only when communication has effects. It has them through people. Okay, human behavior, as we know, is extremely complex, determined by many factors. Okay, some of the most important are internal to the person. We call such factors values, attitudes, beliefs, dreams, hopes, and so on. Some are outside the person in the social environment. These include other people, things, organizations, expectations, or others, and information and knowledge. Planned communication affects directly only knowledge and information in the person's environment. What the individual does depends more on all the other factors than on the changes in knowledge and information. At the same time, we know that people do use information and knowledge to act. Thus, we can be reasonably certain that useful information and knowledge are important to help people act. Okay, planned communication can increase the probability that people will act, but it cannot guarantee it. So, if you want to provide clean water to your family, okay, for example, there is a better chance you will be able to act on successfully if you know some basic things like sanitation, and more successfully if you have learned some skills in probably well digging. Okay, so information and knowledge are centrally important to the processes of thinking and reflection. The life of the mind is as important as the life of action. Okay, and to many people, perhaps more important. What people are, how they see themselves and the world, is important in itself, not only because it determines much of what they do. Planned communication can have a powerful impact on these processes. It is no accident that planned communication has been a central element of all great religious and ideological movements. Okay, the creation and the use of Quran, for instance, the Bible, right, and the sayings of Chairman Mao are significant examples of only planned communication. Okay, we also know that planned communication can persuade people to change both what they believe and what they do. The ethical and moral issues that surround this role of communication in development raise the question of what roles communication should play in development. So, what roles should communication play in development? Okay, this is a central question that must be answered clearly by planners. Their answers will flow from their social image, and where images are in conflict, the answers will conflict also, obviously. Yeah, planned communication should liberate and strengthen the individual in both the world of action and the world of mind. We recognize that this goal can conflict with such goals as national integration, mass mobilization, and social conformity. These goals are important and often valid in a given social environment. In an imperfect world, compromises between these two types of goals are perhaps inevitable, but the choice should be made explicitly and carefully. Okay, so moving on to another question that probably comes up is, who should control the communication resources? Okay, now yet another moral question, one probably not asked often enough by planners, is who should control the communication resources? But the question of the role that communication should play is answered by those who control the plan for communication resources. So, the control of communication resources leads to a significant amount of control over the nature and direction of development. Again, the answers must flow from the dominant social image. That is why communication planning is such an essentially political process. The question is a difficult one to answer. Okay. In the third world, the absolute need for efficient use of resources seems to point towards centralization of planning and control. Yet, as we have seen all over the world, this can lead to unequal access of communication resources in society and the use of communication for domination and exploitation. Control must be shared if development goals such as equity are to be met. All sectors of society should have access to communication resources and to the planning and decision making processes. There are many ways in which this might be done. Some involve radical decentralization of planning and control. Others involve the development of effective means of participation in a centralized planning processes. Still others blend a degree of decentralization with participation. So moving on, how can we improve our theories? Okay, the use of theory to guide strategy development is a crucial element of planning. Theories lie behind the if and then statements on which planned action rests. Yet, most communication theory has been developed in Western culture. Much of this theory base has been shown to be faulty when applied across cultures. Communication planners in the third world face the almost overwhelming task of developing theories and models within their own social image and culture. If the traditional Western model of university based research is followed exclusively, the task will take a long time. While universities are an increasingly important source of new knowledge, right? Planners themselves must seize the opportunities created with planned action to learn on their own and to share this knowledge with others. Okay, so how can we plan better? Okay, regardless of the role that is chosen for communication, planners face the need to deal with larger and more complex systems, while at the same time generating the knowledge base they need. So, rapid technological changes create both opportunities and obstacles. Okay, resources, except in a few wealthy countries, will be increasingly difficult to get, raising the importance of efficiency even higher. In this context, communication planners must look constantly at their planning approaches and methods. The challenge is to create and refine intellectual tools useful for planning. Okay, so there are basically uh, two two to three basic types of communication planning. Okay, um, firstly, let's take the regular communication plan. Okay, the ultimate success of any project lies in determining the correct objective and using the appropriate method of communication. Correct? So identify the interest of the stakeholders and find out the best medium for advertising the message. Okay? Regular communication is one in which each and every member of the team is given a chance for communicating and sharing information. Apart from project members, you should probably consider the opinion of sponsors, stakeholders, and other committee members while setting the target. Okay, examples of regular communication plan is the status report for a quarterly period, scheduled meeting of the team, and updates of the monthly targets, etc. Okay, the meetings will be held on the scheduled dates to discuss the outcome of the project. You should consider the interest of the stakeholder and listen to their analysis before finalizing the plan. The plan should be reviewed regularly at frequent intervals, and the results should be communicated to the stakeholders. Okay. The next plan would be an event driven communication plan. Okay. Now, this is the project in which chances are very rare and arise only one time. You should work with the team members for identifying the event carefully and make maximum use of it. This type of plan contains vendor meetings, sessions discussing critical issues on hand, and appropriate training schedule for the team. The results can be achieved easier only if the project is reviewed periodically. Compare the results of the previous month project and take forward the existing project. Keep on changing the plans of the project once in 6 months so that you can get the maximum benefit from each time-driven opportunity. The communication plan should be designed taking into account the receiver's benefit and not the company's view. Okay, there is another type of communication plan, that is the business communication plan. Okay, now business communication plans transfer information from one individual or group to another. Though the definition sounds simplistic, each type of plan has a specific purpose in a business and may not receive frequent use. Okay, different types of business communication plans are internal, external, and crisis, with the latter possibly a mix of the first two. Companies put these plans into place so there is a constant flow of information among all parties in or related to the company. Many users are involved with sending and receiving communication, making these plans very important. Okay, internal business communication plans represent messages intended only for those stakeholders inside a business. These are often owners, managers, and employees. Different types of communication methods may be present with this plan, such as telephone, email, conferences, or face-to-face meetings and reviews. The communication plan receives frequent use as the stakeholders pass messages back and forth through the system. Outside users are rarely active in this communication plan, as message content may be highly secretive and contain sensitive business information.